Sooner or later you'll find yourself in a situation where it's tricky to light something and make it look nice at the same time, depending on the conditions a project may bring. Most of the time things like this come in spontaneous too. Actually, I found myself quite often in a situation like this, and some other ones that I might talk about in the future if you guys find that valuable, so let me know. Today's example is from a feature film that I've gaffed this year, and yeah, pretty much no budget too. So today we're gonna talk about the scene and why exactly is it that tricky. To start off, we were shooting against this big window, which alone isn't really a problem here, but it's south when I was checking Sunseeker. So I checked the position of the sun prior to shoot and I knew, well, yes, it's south and it's high noon and it's summer. At least it wasn't like the sun itself wasn't gonna show up in the window because it was high noon, of course. That alone is already tricky to even fight the levels from outside. But there was actually more to it. Normally you want to control all of these things and you're gonna do that while pre-production. So when you're on location scout, you're gonna check like where's the sun gonna be and all of that. So shooting at south side and high noon is normally a non-negotiable for me, especially when it's commercial work. But you know, sometimes lighting isn't the only problem, and as I told you, you're definitely gonna be in a situation like this where you're gonna have some problems with lighting. I recreated the set to better show you what was going on. Well, I tried remembering the dimensions of the room. The simulator doesn't have 18Ks by now, so I used two M90s for some brightness to imitate some high noon sun. Actually, this part took me the longest since this application also is only for studio builds by now, and building a room within a room and fake sun with ambient fill from the sky, yeah, which now looks okay, I guess. But in case anyone's questioning the really tall walls and all, don't ask, maybe I'm using this wrong too. So now that we have a somewhat similar harsh light situation going on with the windows, here's what I did. Obviously, in a situation like this, if you have hot windows, like hot in the back, you want to push in level back from some side to kill the contrast, really. The best call would have been to ND down the window, I guess, to kill the massive contrast and therefore also save some ND in camera, but we didn't have that, so we just had to tweak things. For us, blowing out the windows wasn't an option. Of course, you can just blow out the windows, but for us that wasn't what we wanted as well, since it was quite a big and present thing in the frame, and it wouldn't really add to the mood. I mean, I would have loved to have some curtains as well, like some white curtains to kill off the lights, to not see the outside, but for the story it had to be like this, even with the blinds halfway down or almost down, which was also not too easy because you could see reflections from your lights or some other things in the glass then. I guess if there would have been blinds covering the entire window, I'd be fine with it though. Well, then I was looking at my lighting kit. We didn't have any HMIs, so I had to go with some LED units. And the best one I had was a 600X flex light through some diffusion frame through the store, which also helped with tweaking because you had to carefully tweak to not hit too much the wall behind her. Also careful with the reflections you might create. Also, she was wearing glasses, which is also tricky. In this case it was fine, but if you see a reflection of your light in their glasses, you have to go higher with the light or lower depending, but typically you go higher to add some more fill and room tone to help kill the massive contrast from outside. I added a 300D with some spot attachment pointing just above the window out of frame to wrap more light on here too, but more from above a bit. From the other side we were having a black frame to stop bouncing light across the room from the right side, which was my shadow side. Also these blinds on the shadow side were either completely down or almost down. This rim edge light is actually natural, if you couldn't tell. It comes from this window here, and this practical was off, just the one on the desk was on. I'm quite happy with the result. It's not something I'm super proud of, but I'm glad it worked. I think it looks quite believable. It also worked for the close-up. We didn't even modify it for the close-up. It was basically shot at the same time, which I didn't like either, but now in this particular scene there was only one character, but we also shot some other scenes in there with a dialogue partner across the table, which makes things a lot more difficult. One other major problem in that situation, like two persons across the table, is that one person is gonna be hot on the back and the other one is gonna be front lit, obviously. You might ask why? Well, let me show you. Here's a typical situation actually, the door shot. See how they won't show us the reverse shot? The DP was probably, actually let's not do the reverse, we don't need it really to tell the story, and it looks quite ass anyways. And here's another one. And this is what I mean, sure you can do it, but it's probably not the best looking shot. Lighting wise, I mean they solved it pretty smartly because apparently they did need a reverse shot, and they solved this by taking away some light from the right with some black solid to add some shape really, because otherwise it would look completely flat. But because it's soft light, it worked quite well in the situation. But still, because she's standing the closest to the window where the main light source is entering that room, everything behind her gets like soaked up in black, and that's what you'll get naturally if you have them positioned like this. And there's not really a workaround. You somehow have to adjust the key to wrap it more to a side, to fake it, because you obviously can't put it right in front because that's gonna be flat. But if you wrap it a bit, if you just angle it a bit to the side, it just looks already that much better, but still it's gonna be quite flat. So it's definitely a pain in the ass, and I would try to avoid it anytime. If you look at this, it should also work for the reverse shot, but it's a bit more tricky because even if you push in some light like I did in this one, you can also cross key it to the other person in the reverse shot, but it's quite hard because there's still gonna be so much light from the back that's gonna be pushing onto him, or if you kill those a bit, then it's gonna be way darker onto the reverse shot. So for me it was hard to match those. So now the background is still flat because it's all fading into darkness because all the light is coming from the front, so it's basically fronty. So I would definitely turn those practicals on. Also I would try to have some more light direction. Maybe I would add some window light to kill off that flatness and to create more texture, but I actually didn't do it for this feature because there was no time. What I then ask is if it's possible to turn the table like 90 degrees to have the window face them from the far side. In this case it wasn't possible due to how it would make sense story-wise, and because of where the door was and how much more powerful it looked to have her centered across the room. So I knew the composition and the blocking was gonna look like this, which was not in my favor obviously, but You gotta make it work, that's your job. Look how pretty much every time there's an interaction between two people happening, they're sitting parallel to the light source. Because that way you'll get the best result lighting wise, like naturally. Of course, for the wide shot it might seem, yeah, it works, but if you think in close-ups, you'll start to notice really quick that for the close-up you don't get the same key. Or worst case, it's front and the other one is backlit. So it takes more time to do that too, because it's harder and it takes more time to fight all the levels and get everything dialed in. So while keeping this in mind, you can prevent something happening, which worst case you don't like the shots too much, and on the other side you can save some time, because if you just block them differently, or if you find a proper location in the first place, it's gonna be a big help, not only for the lighting but also for the final result. It's great to know how you would light a scene, but in reality it's gonna be a lot different, especially if you can't really plan it in advance and try it out in some virtual engine. Please let me know if that's something that you'd want to see more in the future. I'm definitely gonna do more lighting related videos, because that's what I love. I love lighting. I also gaff, so I hope you're good with that, and if not, do you have some other suggestions that you might want to see? I appreciate you guys, and I hope to see you in the next one.